Welcome to the Ninja Chuang Podcast. My name is Isaac Kamens. This is a bi-weekly podcast where my friend Jess O'Brien and I discuss internal martial arts, Qigong, and meditation. This week we continue our discussion on the great Xingyi Bagua Taiji master Sun Lu Tang. We continue talking about his Xingyi training. This week we profile his training with his second Xingyi teacher, Guo Yun Shen, and we look at some writings from Guo Yun Shen on how to train Xingyi and Xingyi's relationship to Taoism and Neigong. Hope you enjoy the episode. Take care, and thanks for listening.
Welcome to the Neijia Chuan Podcast with Isaac and Jess. We're continuing our discussion of the great Xingyi, Bagua, and Taiji master Sun Lu Tang. Last time we talked about his experiences with Li Kuai Yuan, his first Xingyi teacher. And once he reached the peak of his training, he was then ready to go on and train with Li's teacher, Guo Yun Shen. At this point, Sun Lu Tang is traveling to meet Guo Yun Shen in Beijing in the spring of 1882. He decided to stay and practice full-time with Guo. Sun moved in with his new teacher and studied Xingyi Chuan. When Guo saw Sun Lu Tang's son's Xingyi Chuan, he was very impressed. He said that Sun was especially skilled in Xingyi's monkey form, so he nicknamed Sun the living monkey. It is said that Sun had so much natural talents, he eventually surpassed the level of his original teacher, Li Kuai Yuan. So let's see. So further on it talks about Guo in his teaching method. Guo did not teach Sun much new material, but watched him practice what he already knew and made corrections. One night, after Sun had been there for a year, he was outside practicing when Guo leapt out of the shadows and tried to attack him with Beng Chuan. Sun instinctively used a leaping move from monkey form and leaped back 10 feet. Guo was very happy that Sun could react so well. And I think when you look at Sun Lu Tang, he's that slim, light build that would be perfect for monkey, where you sort of hop back and forth and with very adroit springiness. So then it describes Sun Lu Tang traveling around with Guo and sort of being his assistant teacher. And Sun became a formal inheritor of Guo Yun Shen's Xingyi Chuan. Altogether, Sun stayed with Guo for 8 years, at which time Guo told Sun that if he wanted to add a new dimension to his martial arts, he should practice Bagua Zhang to become skilled at evasiveness. Guo told Sun that he would like to take him to Beijing to study Bagua with his friend Cheng Tinghua. The year was 1889. So now I'd like to look at some of the sayings of Guo Yun Shen, because this was this pivotal teacher of Sun Lu Tang's, and he records the lessons he learned from him, and some of these advices are pretty interesting to check out.
Right, and we mentioned Guo in an earlier episode when we were talking about Zhang Shen, because he also went back after training with his first teacher to go and train with Guo as a sort of finishing thing. So
Guo Yun Shen was mentoring some of these guys who were coming up from other teachers.
Right, it sounds like he was kind of the elder statesman of it,
kind of guy,
and just kind of these guys were all going to get their little finishing touches from him.
So, looking at the advice from Guo Yun Shen in Robert W. Smith's book Xingyi from 1972, here we have advice from the masters, Guo Yun Shen. So here's the first sentence: Xingyi is similar to Taoist meditation. Both have the goal of emptiness. So he just jumps into the most esoteric spirituality from the very beginning. Yet this was the guy who was known for his fierce temper and hell-raising approach.
Well, you can be an asshole and be spiritual. It's not mutually exclusive.
No doubt. But again, that mention of Taoist meditation of emptiness. So I've heard him talk about calmness previously and stillness and stuff. But this emptiness seems like another concept that may go yet deeper.
Well, yeah, the concept of emptiness in Taoist meditation is sort of the goal, right? That's the point where you get to. It's sort of the step before enlightenment, is you enable the sense of just being in the Tao, and you're not doing anything, but you're not doing anything.
So you're empty of like pain, suffering, happiness, all that type of stuff. You're just beyond all worldly things, is my impression.
Yeah, I think it's multi-level. When they talk about emptiness on a physical level, it's about freedom of pain and your body being comfortable. Emptiness on a spiritual level is just the emptiness of struggle. I think it would be the best way to put
conflict.
It. Right? So there's nothing in your body or your mind that's
fighting itself.
Fighting itself. Yeah, I think it's the best way to put it.
I mean, that's about as far as I understand it, but I imagine it goes far deeper.
But it's the same thing with like the microcosmic orbit practices. They talk about the end goal being the sort of the golden elixir, right? And it's the same thing where you get to this point of just being able to sit there and quote, listen to the sound of the stringless instrument or whatever it is, and that thing of you're past doing a whole bunch of stuff, and now you can just sort of sit there and be in it. It's like
you're not doing anything.
Sounds good.
It's out there somewhere. So the next section, we borrow from the Taoist 3 changes: 1, sperm to qi; 2, qi to spirit; and 3, spirit to emptiness. So there's that emptiness emphasis again. And these are the familiar 3 stages of Xingyi practice that all the different schools have their own explanation of: obvious power, hidden power, and mysterious power. The 3 stages of training that comes up again and again. And he begins by saying, the way to reach the highest level is through the obvious and the concealed energies. To get the obvious energy, you must be centered and balanced. Through this energy, sperm is worked into qi, which changes the bones. So the idea is that you become centered and balanced to access obvious, overt power. He doesn't mention like weightlifting or becoming extremely strong or anything like that. It's more like you settle into your bones somehow. Your jing enters the bones. I don't know.
Well,
it's not what I...
To me, that's just physical power from structure. So it's the alignments, ligaments, tendons, all, the physical stuff, both being in the right position and being conditioned to be strong enough to do whatever it is you're trying to do.
That makes sense. Here's another little clue to what he's talking about. After concerted practice, the dispersed qi is concentrated at the navel, and all parts of the body are coordinated. This is called Little Heaven.
That's the
Xiao Zhou Tian.
That's the small microcosmic orbit, right?
That's the first level of Xingyi training. Is all the qi concentrates in the navel and all parts of the body are coordinated. This is called the Xiao Zhou Tian.
Yeah, so the jing, right? The first one, that's what they refer to as your essence, or your sort of, the Western term we would use is more constitution, right? That's your...
Right, well, they call it sperm.
Right, but your constitution being sort of your constitutional nature. Are you a strong person? Are you a weak person? Are you a thin, frail person? Are you a thin, wiry person? Are you a big, flabby, kind of mushy person? Are you a big, kind of heavy, strong person? Right. Sort of that's going to determine the way you approach the training in some ways. So that's the first bit, is just kind of getting your body structure, right?
And concentrating into the navel, once again, is like brought up as the key.
Well, that becomes the second piece of, once you have the physical structure, sort of, you've got the glass, right? This is the way Bruce would always put it, is you first have to build the container to hold the liquid, right? Because you can't drink out of a glass with holes in it. So you first make a container that has no gaps, no holes, no breaks, right? That's all of the physical training.
That's the obvious power of Xingyi.
Then you move to, okay, let's put the liquid in it, or become aware of the liquid in it, now that it's got it, it's a full container. And so that liquid is your qi. That is your non-physical elements of your inside.
That always culminates with this obsession with concentrating all that into the navel.
Well, in the lower danjian, the navel, as they say, is the place where all of those energy lines and physical things meet. It's, again, like I said before, it's the physical center of your body. So in terms of your physicality, it's your center of gravity, but also in terms of your energetic stuff, it's where all of your energetic lines meet in your lower danjian. So you can access everything from that one place, and it becomes sort of like your control room for the rest of your body. So when you want to move your hand, it quote unquote comes from your danjian, right? And all the movements in Xingyi quote unquote come out of your danjian, both your foot and your hand and your spine. So that's kind of still, again, it's a physical thing, because you're still talking about hands and feet and spine, but you're talking about it connecting to something that's not physical.
Right. And the very final piece of this first stage is the little heaven, or Xiao Zhou Tian, which is a concept straight from Taoist alchemy and meditation.
Right. Well, that's kind of that's
the circulation of the meridians.
Right. And with
up the back, down the front.
The hand motion of Pichuan, for example, mimics that path. So
Interesting, yeah.
So you're doing kind of a physical thing. And some schools will do a little wave with the back, like a little spinal wave to kind of go along with it.
Sure.
So it's actually visible to see.
So you can physically enact that action kind of with a wave.
The stuff I learned, mostly you do it internally, so you can't see it in from the outside. But if you put your hands on the person, you can feel it. There's like a little wave going up the body, kind of.
So the second stage is called concealed energy. It is free, relaxed, soft, and natural. However, don't be misled by the word soft. It is not soft like grass. Rather, it is elastic. This stage deals with changing qi into spirit and concomitantly changing the sinews. It is called Big Heaven. Da Zhou Tian.
Right. Now you're getting into doing things on you're obviously still using your body because you're still doing things, but your focus is on moving your mind through your energy channels, not trying to fire different parts of your physical body. For example, that wave you were doing in Pichuan to start with, to really get the sense of it coming up your back and then down the front, right, which is the main sort of internal feeling of it, becomes about just moving chi along your central channel and doing the movement from that space rather than from your spine, right? And that gives you a even tighter center of gravity, right? So it becomes softer in the sense that you're not putting as much in your arms, but you're more stable because you got more in your center core. Yeah. So it's like the strength goes deep. One way to think about this progression, and it's on just a real big picture thing, is the first one is you get the strength in your hands. You know, you can do a technique and your arm doesn't collapse. You can do a technique and your knee doesn't buckle, right? You get the power out to the extremity. The second part is you bring it into like your shoulders. So it isn't your hand doing the motion, it's your shoulders and your hips. Right? You really start getting the sense of that, what we would refer to as opening and closing, or the marriage of heaven and earth stuff. So there's this pulsing action happening in your arms and legs, and that's really where the power is coming from. It's not coming from your muscles, it's coming from inside your joint.
Yeah, so now it's concealed energy where it's less obvious.
Right. So it's still there, but it's hidden behind this sort of layer of your body.
So he describes the way the body moves. When your right hand goes forward, the left hand pulls back, as though it were tearing cotton or drawing a bow. But this is done slowly, not abruptly. When your two hands go forward, like pulling a cart, you use your legs, not your hands, to move the cart. It is your legs, not your hands, that impart strength to your boxing. The rear foot holds strength as though you were going to leap off it across a ditch. So there's that sense of like, the spring has been bent to spring out from the like there's an inner spring that's released to the outside.
Yeah, the way it was explained to me is you've loaded, like when you load a spring, like a mouse trap, right? You have to put some energy in to load it, but once it sort of clicks into place, it will stay there until something triggers it. Right, so that you're loading this spring, this compression inside your body a bit. When something touches it, you then spring off. It releases this internal compression but you're not holding it with tension. It's just you develop this sort of inner squishiness.
That's that hidden power that's just held within without a clenching effect. That's pretty sweet.
And you can see it. For example, in the Sun Lu Tang Xingyi book, you can see there's pictures of him when he's younger. His hand, his posture is a little more extended, his arms more straight, and his fingers are facing almost at a 45-degree angle. Then there's another picture when he's older, his elbows bent a little more, and his fingers are pointing straight up, almost like a Bagua posture. And you can sort of see how he's brought it into his body more. And it's a little less about going all the way out to the extremities and more about connecting to the core.
So here he moves. This is Guo Yun Shen's advice about the highest stage. The highest stage grows from the second. It is called mysterious, the result of marrow washing. It is soft and uses no strength. It lets you move more easily because the energy is concentrated. And this energy merges you with emptiness, the Tao, in which boxing is non-boxing, non-boxing is boxing.
I would say this is where Xingyi meets the Taiji, right? That in Tai Chi, you start with the softness. Your goal is, you get as soft as possible, and through that softness, you eventually connect to this sort of inner power. That's the iron wrapped in silk approach, right? Xingyi's the polar opposite. It starts with iron. It starts with develop the structure and the power, and then it works its way back into the body, into the center, to find that general softness that is inside all of us. But they're working toward the same goal, essentially.
So that brings me, to this thing of Tao, and emptiness, again, is at the center of what Guo Yun Shen's talking about. Boxing is non-boxing, non-boxing is boxing. I interpret that as that sense of when you're fully embodied in something and you're like in that zone where you're fully manifesting it. It's like, say, in a sparring match where you feel like your actions are just going exactly how they're supposed to. Like they're perfectly smooth and connected. It doesn't feel like you're trying really hard and swinging really hard. You just happen to be in the right place at the right time, and your structure and your body like carry you, kind of like it's doing itself in a way.
Yeah, the phrase Bruce uses is you stop doing the form and the form starts to do you, right? You reach the point where your conscious mind is no longer needed to set off that trigger. That your body, your what they call heart mind, has developed to the point where you don't need the other stuff to tell you when to move. So this is the level of, someone doesn't have to hit your arm to get you to move. They have to touch the hair on your skin, right? That you have and so they never actually feel any contact until you hit them. So it's not it doesn't have the yielding of Tai Chi. That part is still separate, right? But it has the ability to absorb and to release without doing any kind of compression and expansion on the outside. So Liu Hongzhi, for example, this was his whole thing with the Xingyi. Xingyi had almost no snap to it, no pop at the end of all the movements just end with a release. And so it has this sense of it's continuously going forward, but there's something pulling it that's not being forced. It's you're being led by something other than what you're putting out.
And that speaks to the final part of the paragraph. The energy derived is different from regular strength. Although the actions taken are the same, the energy stays inside, controlled by the mind. This is the acme of Xingyi, the best of alchemy, boxing, and the Tao.
There you go.
Dang. So from this hardened warrior is coming this alchemy, Tao, and Xingyi are mixed together somehow. Like, that's pretty, how would you say, it's a mind-body practice from the highest level.
Yeah, I think there was at least with everything I've, learned that came from Liu Hongzhi, and seemingly this came from his teachers, is that you can fight and you can do the other stuff, but there has to be there's this caveat of don't hurt yourself, right? Both physically, but also don't hurt yourself mentally. And so the way you don't hurt yourself mentally is you don't build up all these pictures in your head about, oh, I'm this or I'm that and I'm strong and I'm beating somebody up, and you're just kind of getting into this like movie in your head. You actually relax and dissolve and do all the meditation stuff so that you're clear. You're seeing what's in front of you. aka you're enlightened, right? Enlightenment is just seeing things for what they are. Xingyi's goal is to see what's happening as it is, so that, again, Xingyi's not looking to become a monk. Mm-mm. It's looking to have a clear mind. Mm-hmm. So
they share that.
That is the common connection. That's the common denominator, I think, between all of these arts, right? And that's what Sun Lu Tang was really talking about when he said Neijia Chuan is, Xingyi, Taiji, Bagua, is that they all come from that same idea that it's your mind that has to be the primary thing, not your ego or your body's desires.
On to the next section, he discusses the washing of the sinews and the bone marrow and so on. And there's a discussion of that. And one of the things I wanted to highlight was, he says, to wash and clean the bone marrow is to relax completely and purify and refine the internal organs by using your mind, thus making your body as light as a feather. And that reminded me of how within the training of the 5 elements in San Ti, you do work from the 5 main organs one by one, applying Xingyi training to each one. And it just rang a bell with the training that we've done, where the organs play a prominent role in the practice.
Yeah, the stuff that Bruce teaches that where you do that is mostly in the spiraling energy body.
So, okay, the next thing I wanted to tap on. So he goes into a breathing discussion where the basic, advanced, and intermediate levels. And he gives some instruction there. But one thing that stood out to me was that the 3rd and highest breathing stage is of mysterious energy. In this stage, your spirit is transformed to emptiness, and you do not feel you are breathing. There is no sound, no smell. Everything is empty. So he's talking about breathing in San Ti to the point where breath itself sort of becomes, you can't even tell that you're breathing. That's pretty high level.
When you relax it enough, the sense is that your breath and your chi become the same thing. And this is why they're the same word, that you get to the point that the inhale, exhale is not separate from, but is also not controlling the inward and outward flow of chi. And this is the heart mind. This is that same level of where all of the things that you had previously had to do with your intent, you now kind of do with this deeper thing that develops from years of practicing with the intent, that comes out of the sort of merging of all of the energies from your internal organs. So that's why San Ti in a sense is the beginning, but it's also the end, because you start out doing it to develop all of this stuff, but then once you've done the whole system and you've gone through everything to earth element, you then go back to doing San Ti to kind of solidify it and integrate it and make it one thing. And then that becomes you've now leveled up to the next part of it, where now you're moving with a whole toolkit, right?
The first time say that unconscious mind takes over,
right?
Like something deeper than your main grasping mind.
You build the toolkit, then you have now the toolkit. Once you have the toolkit, you're able to use the thing in a different way,
creatively.
And at a certain point, you just internalize everything to where none of it is conscious in your mind, and it just happens because you've trained it so much. I mean, none of this is like mystical. It's just if you do something 100,000 times, it becomes really easy, and you don't put any effort into it. I think that's the main kind of message here.
So this next paragraph, he talks about 3 stages of Xingyi. So the first he describes as a steel chisel, like that overt power.
Right.
The next, like shooting off like an arrow. But the highest stage, he follows the wind and chases the moon. An outsider never sees the hit. If he does, it does not belong to this stage. This is Xingyi, the highest level of achievement. The mind is mindless. You do nothing and have done everything. In the emptiness, we find our prenatal bodies. But do not be too concerned about this. If you try too hard, it will elude you. Instead of trying to achieve it, pretend you already have it. This will help your mind. After all, the mind is the embodiment of your actions. Therefore, Xingyi is mind boxing.
There you go.
Dang, so that just breaks it down to this 3rd level of like, you hit, the other person never sees you get hit. The highest level is to do nothing and have done everything. This speaks to the philosophy of Lao Tzu and that do without doing type of approach. Another connection to Taoism that just keeps popping up every time in every paragraph of this thing.
Yeah, and it's the action without action, right? And you just get where when things happen, you just respond to them. You don't react to them, I think is
right. Like he's saying, if you try too hard, you'll never get there. Just pretend you already have it.
Yeah, I don't know if pretend is maybe the right word. But it's you practice in a way that you're okay with what you have, and so you don't dilute yourself into thinking you're a god, but you also don't think you're a piece of dog shit who can never get it. So a big part of Xingyi is you have to develop a mindset of the will, the I am kind of thing. And so when you do something in the beginning, right, this is that first stage, it's my will be done, right? You're going to do a technique and it's going to have that sort of attitude of I've already done this, it's over, we're done. And it's very clear and it's very like sharp, correct, right? Yeah. The second layer is you get a little bit more comfortable with it and you're able to start doing a bit more of the opening and closing, and you're able to start letting your body be a bit freer. So instead of your technique just being a real short, sharp kind of thing that cuts to the quick, you have a little bit more where you're almost like a cat playing with a mouse, right? You have a bit more of this mindset of when someone punches at you, it's not, oh shit, it's, oh yeah. You're kind of like, let's do this. And you're not afraid of it, which then lets you kind of access a deeper part of your body. And that's that middle level. And then, if you can get past that, you can reach that third level.
Emptiness thing that he's talking about. All right, just a few more things that I wanted to cover here. In the basic posture, San Ti, says Guo Yun Shen, most of the weight is on your rear foot. In Xingyi, the weight is never shared equally. This eases movement and avoids the rigidity of double weighting. It lets you distinguish between the soft and the hard. Xingyi is uncomplicated because it is natural. We are in harmony with everything. Do not look for miracles. Carry on like a normal person doing ordinary actions. And with perseverance, progress will come.
Again, there's that thing about natural movement. I think in one of the past episodes, somebody had said, anybody can practice Xingyi. Again, it's because the movements of it aren't about big, exaggerated, expressive things. They're about internal stability, and anybody can practice that. And so it really is a practice for the people kind of thing.
Sure. And this advice from probably over 100 years ago, he's saying most of the weight is on your rear foot. So if anyone asks about Santi, there it says.
Yeah, most, all. I mean, I think that it's debatable, but I think definitely it's not on your front foot.
Right? That's what you could take from here. So now here he talks about Xingyi for health. You may learn Xingyi simply for health, but if you learn it for boxing purposes, it's more difficult. Whoever is proud will lose. Watch the distance between yourself and an antagonist. Study his physical characteristics and stance. When you step forward, intend to dig into him. Protect your body with your elbows. Be versatile and flexible. Do not be afraid of changing your tactics. Do not use strength. Be calm and you will be stable.
Yeah, each one of those things is like huge.
Right? I mean, each one of those is... I can just hear him saying those things to Sun Lu Tang in class, saying, when you step in, dig into him. Protect your body at the elbows. Keep your elbows in. Don't use strength. Be calm. Like, those are him in the corner shouting into them.
Right, you could...
Just, one statement after another of all the things you got to keep in mind. And at the same time, they all sort of become...
I think it's very similar to the Tai Chi classics in that you can read it as instructions, but it's also advice, right? So on one level, it's do it like this, but on another level, it's do it like that so that this will develop and you're looking to go to this direction. So there's always this other layer of it where, don't think you're finished just because you got that one piece. There's more to it. You just have to get to that marker before we're going to tell you what the next chunk is. And I think there's that's the linear nature of Xingyi, right? That you're not doing linear things, but your mind has to develop something, and that something has to develop linearly, otherwise it gets cluttered.
It's the most direct path by going linearly. And like you're saying, you keep the same motions and same actions. It's just that at each of those three, say, developmental stages, you're still doing San Ti, but you're getting something different out of it at each of the stages of practice. So I wanted to touch on one last story from one of Sun Lu Tang's books where his student describes how Sun Lu Tang would talk about the three different martial arts. So he says, Xingyi will attack an opponent where he is strong rather than where he is weak. So Xingyi confronts you right at your strongest point, whereas Bagua will vigorously change in all directions. So Bagua continues to change before it finds the point to enter. He says Taiji will flow continuously, moving along with an attack by neither disconnecting nor resisting, responding by staying centered. So that's the way he describes it, and he adds the three personalities. Xingyi crashes through, Bagua goes around, and Taiji just stays there. What do you think of that? I mean, that's pretty accurate.
Yeah. My favorite analogy for that is you have a castle. So the Xingyi castle, as you attack it, just before you get to the gate, so you're not even, or the moat, you're not even at the castle yet. Arrows start flying and hitting you, and you're just getting wiped out before you even get there.
Get to the gate.
Right? Tai Chi, you run up, doors open,
no
one's there. You're like, where is everybody? Doors closed behind you. Here comes the hot lead and the arrows, right? Bagua, the castle just gets up and moves, walks away.
So it pivots out of the way.
Castle's just not where you think it's going to be.
I hear that go through. And here's another idea of the castle. Of like, say you were attacking the castle. With Xingyi, you just go straight for the front gate and batter it down. With Bagua, you might go around the side and try to attack from the cliffs on the other side of the castle. And then it says Taiji just stays there. So you just wait till they eventually they run out of food and they have to come out. And then
that's the
sieging side of the equation.
On the other
right?
side of it, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting how the three arts, and Sun Lu Tang is the guy who really brought forward the idea of those three arts mixing together and having different strategies, but sharing a lot of the same qualities of physical connections, working with Qi, this obsession with like the Dantian and some of these Taoist concepts. You can see all three of them. And later, when we more talk about Tai Chi more, you'll see even more so those philosophical concepts being used in the martial art.
Hey folks, Isaac here. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Just want to quick remind people to check out our Instagram. Check out the Patreon for interviews and lessons and other exclusive content. And like and subscribe, tell a friend, and leave us a positive review on iTunes. Take care, have a good day, and be well.